What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a hoot and a holler, a true banger of a video. In today's video, I'm going to tell you guys about the time I flew home with a QP, and I almost got busted. It was a very, very sketchy situation. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch, because we have been streaming Elden Ring every single day. We're getting ready for the DLC. We're grinding. Make sure you follow me. Tune into the next stream. Get ready. All right, we're having a fun old time over there. We're day drinking too, but hey, we won't talk much more about that. So, without further ado, actually, there is a little further ado. The latest drug tier list just came out, but it got age restricted, so it's shadow banned. Link for that will be in the description, all right? Now, without further ado, let's dive right into it. So in today's video, we're talking about the time that I flew home from LA with a QP. And listen, this was not the first or only time I did this. However, this was definitely the sketchiest. Actually, no. This was not the only time I did this, but it was the first, now that I think back at it. Either way, all right, let's not get too federal here. We don't got to talk too much. So, this happened back in late 2021, and for those of you guys who have been following for a while, you'll remember that this is right around the time that I started traveling a little more to make content. I started flying out to Los Angeles to go on some podcasts, link up with Eric Kahn, Dope as Yola, all the Pine Park homies, and just have a good time, and I would fly out here pretty often. The main reason I would fly out is obviously content, but also weed. Listen. There's no secret, okay? There's no hiding the fact. The stuff out here in California is far better than anything I was going to get my hands on back in Illinois, especially Springfield, Illinois, bumfuck nowhere. So I had to get my ass out here. I had to hop on a flight and fly over to California to get my goods. But you know what you don't have to hop on a flight and get? The 5 gummies that they're giving away completely free right now. Now, these gummies have 10 milligrams of green medicine, which is definitely enough for you to feel, and they smack. Trust me, you guys who have been watching the channel for a while, you're probably familiar with 5. They love to hook y'all up, and they've got free gummies that you guys can check out just by looking in the comments section, all right? They've got all different types of amazing tasting gummies for any different situation. Daytime, nighttime, and everything in between. So be sure to go check out 5. More information will be below. Now, thank you all for tuning in. Back at it. So listen, I used to fly out to California pretty often, do my content, and get my pack. But on this fateful day, I had flown out and I only had a 2-day trip. I had flown out to film a podcast, but also there was an event that I was going to. You see, I'm going to give you guys a little sauce right now, okay? If any of you guys have a plug in your area that, says he gets his stuff from Cali and maybe he doesn't tell you how he gets it, there's a fairly good chance that this is what he's doing. He's hopping on a plane, he's flying out to LA or somewhere else in California, but most often LA. He's going to one of the events, right? So there's a lot of gray market events that happen where brands that are licensed and unlicensed will show up and sell bud, and they'll sell it at a better rate than you can get it in any of the dispensaries, right? So a lot of the trappers like to go to these events, stock up on whatever they're getting, and then bring it home. Now, whether they fly home with it, whether they ship it, I don't know, but they get it back to their home state. Now, if you got a plug out in Arkansas who's suddenly showing up with a bunch of real authentic stizzies and backpack boys and jungle boys and everything in between, there's a very good chance that that is what he did. Sorry if I just spilled the sauce, everybody, but there it is. So, I had flown out and I had an event to go to. Now, we're not going to talk about which event this is or where it was or anything, because once again, that's a little bit federal, but I had to go to this event because it had a stacked lineup of vendors. All my favorite brands were going to be there with all my favorite flavors for the best prices, so we were pulling up. And the other benefit of me going to these events is not only could I get packed for the low, because they just had better prices, but also because I make content and I do what I do, sometimes I would get free weed at these events. Now, admittedly, the free weed is usually terrible, but you gotta remember, I lived in the middle of nowhere, Illinois at this point. Anything at these events was gonna be better than the stuff I was getting back home. So I pulled up to this event, and I pulled up solo dolo. I brought my money, and I brought about $800 if I remember correctly. It was somewhere in that ballpark. Now, we're stocking the fuck up, okay? I'm hitting all my favorite booths, and I'm not going to name any names once again because I don't know how many of these brands are actually licensed or not, but shout out to everyone at these events who's pulling up and ripping open pound bags and serving. I love it, and I'm a happy customer. So I pulled up, I stocked up, and I ended up buying around a quarter pound of flour, but I also had hash rosin with me. I had about a quarter pound of flour. I had maybe a half ounce of hash rosin, nothing crazy, but I was bringing home enough to share, okay? I was bringing home enough for myself, for the homies. All my homies were really counting on me. My friends, whenever I would go out to California at this point, they'd be like, yo, please grab me a little bit of this. Give me a half ounce. You know what I like. Pick whatever's best. Just give me some good flavors. I got X amount of money. I was the people's hero, okay? I was the champion. I wasn't really the plug, but I was the plug, okay? So I was hitting this event stocking the fuck up. And I got a whole lot of hoopla. I got a whole lot of smoke. Some of it incredible, some of it trash. That's the game you play. That's what I signed up for. So I grab all my loot and I head back to my hotel. And at this point, I was staying in Burbank. I was staying at a pretty nice spot. Not because I wanted to spend a bunch of money on the spot, but because on Priceline, that was the best deal that I found. It was the biggest discount. So we were posted the fuck up this trip, all right? I headed back. Luckily, my room had a window that opened, so I was able to smoke in that hoe, not get the smoking fee. I'm very good at that, okay? My associate, Eric Kahn, has a habit of getting kicked out of or banned from hotels that we stay at for business trips, Pine Park trips. But me, I'm very careful with that kind of thing, all right? I'm smooth with it. I got the window cracked. We're blowing the smoke out. I know all the tips and tricks, all right? Growing up in a condo, close proximity to my mother, smoking out of the apple, I was hip, all right? So I'm back at my hotel, and I'm smoking up a little bit. I'm smoking some cones because I suck at rolling joints, and I didn't bring a bong and yada yada. But either way, I'm smoking up, and I realize that I got to start packing. You see, when I would fly home from LA, most of the time, I would fly home very early in the morning. A, because it was the cheapest, and B, because then I would get home early enough where I would still have the rest of my day ahead of me. Flying back to Illinois from LA, it's a 4-hour flight, but you also lose 2 hours jumping ahead time zones. So really it ends up being like 6 hours. If I, let's say take off from LA at 10 a.m., I'm not even going to get home until like 5 or 6 p.m. after I have to Uber home and do all that nonsense. So I left bright and early most of my trips home. The problem with this is that I only brought a backpack. I had a quarter pound, a half ounce of rosin, my clothes, my laptop, my camera stuff, and I had to fit all of that in this small backpack. So we had to make some deep sacrifices, okay? I was leaving clothes behind. I was sacrificing a lot of shit. I left entire outfits behind in this hotel room. I was like, listen, bro, I could go to Walmart. I could replace that hoodie right now. We don't need this fucking hoopla, okay? This was serious, all right? Honest to God, if there was like a dying child, okay, outside of the hotel door, like in the hallway, right? And he was like, yo, the only way you can save me is by putting me in your backpack and like taking me on Southwest Airlines. I would have left his ass there for the QP. Like, that's how serious this was, okay? So I'm sitting here, I'm like, damn, bro, I guess I could leave my toiletries here. Like, I don't need to bring my toothbrush home. I got an extra one in the drawer. I'm getting all the space open that I possibly can, all right, folks? So I'm packing up my bag, and I get it all ready to rumble. And by the time I got it all packed up, because, I'm slow with this shit. I'm not sitting down and, like, finishing packing as soon as I start. It's like, I'll put a couple things in my bag. I'll start watching a YouTube video. I'll roll a joint. I'll get high. I'll go smoke. I'll be tweaking, all right? So a few hours had passed, and I finally packed up my bag. And at this point, I realized that there wasn't really much of a point in me going to sleep. I was only going to get like 3 hours of sleep because I had to wake up at like 4 a.m. to Uber all the way to LAX and get the fuck up out of LA. So I was like, damn, bro, I guess I'll just sit here and wait, maybe stroke my shit. I don't know. I'll just sit here and wait. Uber's coming. So I spent the next few hours I had free just smoking joints and kind of waiting around trying to keep myself awake. I was tired and I really wanted to sleep, but I just knew that if I fell asleep now, I was fucked. There was no way in hell I was going to make my flight. So I'm fighting through it. I'm smoking some joints. I'm staying awake. And smoking joints seems fairly counterintuitive for staying awake, but It was something to do. It kept me occupied. I was able to fight through the tiredness while I was stoned as long as I had something to do. Because if I sat there watching stuff on my phone or watching the hotel TV, it was going to be over. I was going to be knocked the fuck out. I had to be standing up, smoking, standing on the balcony, or not the balcony, but standing by the window, getting my fresh air, keeping me alive. So the few hours had gone by, and finally it was time for me to go to the airport. And I didn't realize up until I got in the Uber how fucking loud I smelled. You see, once you enter like a different space that hasn't really been doused by the stench of your weed, you really start to realize, damn, I stink like a motherfucker. And I hopped in that Uber and I had like an hour-long ride and I smelled my bag immediately. It was like as soon as I got in and I put my backpack down by my feet, I could just smell the stank just rising out of it. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude, like this is hot. This is not good. And LAX actually has a policy. It's specifically the LAX airport has a policy saying that you're allowed to go through TSA with a certain amount of weed. I was far over that policy, okay? We were well healthily past that policy, okay? We were in like baby trapper territory, all right? Lil Motion territory. So I make it to the airport and I get dropped off with my stank ass bag and I walk over to the security line. We do that mobile check-in. We never check luggage, okay? I hate doing that. I will do everything in my power to avoid checking luggage. I hate it. I'm sick of it. So we head straight over to security. And I don't know what it was, because normally going through security, I'm fine, whether I have anything or not. I've brought far worse through than this before. So normally I'm okay, but today I was just anxious. I was nervous. I think it was the lack of sleep contributing, but I was standing there and I remember I was just like cold sweating. I was sweaty. I was nervous. I was itching. I was looking around. I was like, shit, dude, like, I had this bad feeling in me. I felt like something was not going to work out on this day. So I'm making my way through the line. LAX security lines are always long. It doesn't really matter what time you show up, but I'm making my way through the line. And finally, eventually, I remember we were in, what terminal is it? It was the American Airlines terminal. It's the same one every time. It's like 5 or 7 or I don't know. It's towards the end of the little loop, though. I remember that much. But either way, I'm making my way through security. I'm toughing it out, and I get up to the front, and I give the dude my ID. And the little, the guy who, like, checks your ID and just looks at you normally started asking me a bunch of questions. He's like, where are you flying today? Oh, where are you from? Like, oh, why are you in California? Asking me all these questions that even to this day, I don't think anyone's ever asked me again at the airport. Normally, they look at your ID, they look at your face, they make sure you look the same and you're on your way. Sometimes, occasionally, they'll ask me where I'm headed. But this dude was asking me a lot of questions. So I'm thinking like, damn, does he smell me? Like, what is cracking in this bitch? Mind you, it's not TSA agents' job to even find drugs. They're not searching for your drugs. They're looking for bombs and guns. But, I mean, if you make it obvious, if you make it easy for them, I mean, they're going to take it. They're going to do something. So I'm kind of tweaking. I'm like, yo, he's got to smell me or some shit. Like, I got to stink like shit, bro. Like, fuck, this is bad. And I'm white, so I don't have any stinky ethnic cuisine that I normally eat that I could pass off, He's looking at me. He's like, nah, this guy's culture is Yorkshire puddings. Like, that's not what that smells like, all right? I know damn well he's up to no good. So after getting profiled hard as shit by the ID guy, I walk up and I start emptying my pockets into the bin. You guys have probably flown before, at least you've seen it. You know the process. I don't got to describe that. So I'm emptying out my stuff into the bin, and I'm so nervous at this point and just tired and shaken up that I don't remember to take out any of my electronics. I just emptied my pockets, took off my shoes, threw my backpack on the little thing, and off I fucking went. That was my entire play. I didn't even think twice about it. Now, let me give y'all a little pro tip as well while we're here, okay? For all my flyers out there that need to get stoned, I'm not encouraging you to do so. In fact, I highly advise against it. If you get in trouble for this, it can get very serious. However, if you're gonna fly with something, my best advice is don't try to hide it. Don't try to wrap it up in something that you think maybe the x-ray machine can't see through. Think about this shit like you're an x-ray machine, okay? If you see what looks like just a normal bag, maybe it's weed, maybe it's something else, or especially concentrate. Concentrate on an x-ray looks like nothing. It looks like makeup. It looks like a beauty product, right? If you see that on its own, you're going to think, oh, it's probably nothing. If you're the x-ray machine and you see it all wrapped up in some shit that looks kind of sketchy, you're going to pull that out because you might even think it's a bomb, not even weed. So my advice is definitely, if you're going to fly with some weed like I did, just put it in the bottom of your bag and put your clothes over it. You know, don't wrap it up in some crazy shit. Don't try to go some James Bond ass shit, you know. Just put it in your bag and roll with it, all right? Also, if you put it in your check luggage, it's probably going to get stolen. So I usually did carry on. But either way, I threw my bag on there, I took off my shoes, and I went through the metal detector, the thing where they scan your whole body. And I always wear a hoodie, and I never have an undershirt. So they pat me down every single time I fly. They're patting me down, and I'm chilling. I'm like, hey, my boy, you could grope me if you want. As long as I get a first class upgrade, hey, cop a little feel or two, my G. Didn't get none of that. He did grope me, though. So, I go through my metal detector, do my thing. I get to the very end, and I'm waiting for my bag to come out of the machine. I'm standing there and I'm waiting, and it's going real slow. And I see the agents like looking at the screen, and I'm just like, fuck, bro. I can't look at the screen too hard because then it looks like I'm nervous. So I'm kind of trying to look around like nonchalant, like, oh, I'm waiting for my bag. It's no big deal. I got all day. My flight doesn't take off for 10 days. We're good, man. I'm vibing. I'm waiting for my shit. And my bag comes out of the machine, and the thing stops. The little conveyor belt stops. And then it gets pushed over to the far side. So that's how you know they're about to open up your bag and look in that bitch. And I'm like, fuck. At this point, I still hadn't realized that I left any electronics in there. I wasn't even thinking at all. So my bag gets pulled over, and one of the TSA agents, he's like, oh, whose bag is this? And I raise my hand. I walk over there. And he looks at me. He's like, oh, do you have any electronics in your bag? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Now that I think about it, I do. I do have electronics, and I'm sitting there. My heart is thumping. I'm thinking like, yo, he's going to reach in there, grab a fat-ass bag of weed, bro. Like, he's going to grab like one of the fucking half-ounce jars I got in that bitch, pull it. It's over, all right? He's going to up a taser, shoot me in the side of the head with it, knock me unconscious, drag me to the back rooms, cut my limbs off, fucking string me to a wall, feed me to wolves, and that's how I die. That's what I was really thinking was going to happen at this point. My heart was thumping. I'm like, yeah, I got electronics in there. My bad. He opens up my bag. He's got his gloves on, right? He's got these little latex gloves on. I'm like, yo, he's got the drug gloves. He smells it. Like, he knows, bro. He didn't put those on for no reason. Like, fuck, dude. Reaches in there, pulls out my laptop. He's like, oh, you got to take this out. We're going to have to run it back through. I'm like, okay, no problem. Like, no concern. I had a few other electronics in there, but the laptop's the only thing he took out. So he takes out the laptop, and he goes back to the other side, and he puts it back in a bin for me. And he just runs it back through the machine. He's like, yeah, stay here. He zips my bag back up. I don't even think he looked when he reached his hand inside there. Like, he just reached in, grabbed my laptop, and pulled it out. And the way my backpack was set up, that was a 50-50 chance. You see, the big pocket in my backpack is split down the middle. One side of it is where I would put my electronics, like my laptop, or if I brought my Switch or stuff like that. The other side is where I put the fucking weed. So if that man reached on the wrong side of that shit, he would have reached in and pulled out a fat-ass, stanky-ass bag of weed, and I would have probably gone to jail. Luckily, that did not happen. He pulled out my laptop, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. Holy fuck. The entire time, my heart's thumping. I was quiet. I didn't say a word. Normally, I'm the kind of guy where, I'll talk some shit. I'll make my small talk, try to get a laugh out of, whoever's fucking with me, But in this instance, nah. I was stone cold, bro. I was tweaking. Thank God everything was okay. Made it through completely fine. Got my bag back, laptop in that bitch, hopped on the plane, stanking like shit, and yeah, I definitely got a few looks as I walked down the aisle to my seat. I sat at the very back of the plane. I usually sit at the back, so, hey, the back has the cheapest seats, and it's the safest spot if the plane goes down. I'm not kidding. That's real. There's research. That's real, okay? So the back area is it's my home. So I effectively crop dusted the entire plane with gas, all right? The entire plane. There was little babies in that bitch, little toddlers. Stoned. Secondhand high immediately. I take my seat, fly the fuck home. I get back to St. Louis. I flew into St. Louis at this point because it was closer than the Chicago airports to Springfield. So I flew into St. Louis, fucking copped the Uber, hit the crib, man. The weed was all good. This was by far the closest, I think, that I had ever been to getting caught with that significant amount. I've had a few instances of TSA opening my bag when I maybe had things I shouldn't have, but it never got this close. This man, his fingers were millimeters away from touching my pack. He might have even poked around a little bag or two. I don't know what he did with his fingers in there, but thankfully, I made it the fuck home. And that's the story of how I went through TSA with a QP. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And also, don't forget to check out the free gummies that Five are hooking y'all up with. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll see y'all in the next one. Deuces.